There's a deceptively simple equation at the heart of all personal finance. Wealth equals the difference between what you earn and what you spend. This gap, the space between income and expenses, is the engine that powers every financial goal you'll ever have. It funds your emergency savings, fuels your investments, pays off your debts, and ultimately buys your freedom. Yet most financial advice focuses on only half of this equation. Some experts obsess over frugality, urging you to cut lattes and cancel subscriptions. Others promise that if you just earn more, your problems will evaporate. Both perspectives miss the essential truth. Sustainable wealth comes from systematically maximizing the gap itself, working both sides of the equation simultaneously, while building systems that make the process automatic and sustainable. This is the savings gap strategy, a comprehensive approach to widening the space between your income and expenses, then deploying that gap strategically toward your most important financial goals. Let's begin with a fundamental realization that transforms how you think about money. Consider two people. Alex earns $150,000 annually and spends $140,000. Jordan earns $60,000 and spends $40,000. Who is wealthier? Who will achieve financial independence first? Despite earning less than half of Alex's income, Jordan saves $20,000 per year compared to Alex's $10,000. At those rates, Jordan will accumulate more wealth, reach financial milestones faster, and have more options in life. This isn't just about the raw dollars saved. It's about the percentage of income preserved and the lifestyle flexibility that lower expenses provide. This reveals the first principle of the savings gap strategy. Your savings rate matters more than your income level. Someone saving 50% of a modest income will outpace someone saving 5% of a high income over any meaningful time frame. The three dimensions of the gap. The savings gap isn't one-dimensional. It operates across three distinct planes that interact with each other in powerful ways. The first dimension is magnitude, the raw dollar amount of the gap. A gap of $500 per month is obviously less than a gap of $2,000 per month in absolute terms. Magnitude determines how quickly you can achieve specific financial goals measured in dollars. The second dimension is proportion, the gap expressed as a percentage of income. Saving $500 from a $2,000 monthly income represents a 25% savings rate, while saving $500 from a $10,000 income is just 5%. Proportion matters because it reflects sustainability and lifestyle design. A high proportional gap usually indicates someone who has built a life that doesn't require excessive spending to feel fulfilling. The third dimension is trajectory, whether your gap is growing, stable, or shrinking over time. Someone with a modest gap that increases by 1% each year will eventually surpass someone with a larger but stagnant gap. Trajectory captures momentum and the direction of your financial life. Effective gap management requires attention to all three dimensions. You want a gap that is large in absolute terms, represents a meaningful percentage of your income, and grows over time. Before we explore how to maximize the gap, we need to understand why conventional approaches often disappoint. Traditional budgeting asks you to track every expense, assign each dollar to a category, and exercise constant willpower to stay within limits. This approach has several fatal flaws. First, it treats budgeting as a restriction rather than an enabler. When you focus on what you can't spend, you create psychological resistance. Every purchase becomes a decision point, a moment of potential failure. This depletes willpower, a finite resource, and makes the system feel punitive. Second, traditional budgeting is reactive. You spend first, then categorize and assess. By the time you realize you've overspent, the damage is done. You're always looking backward, trying to understand what went wrong last month rather than shaping what happens next month. Third, detailed budgeting doesn't scale with complexity. As income rises and life gets busier, tracking every coffee and parking meter becomes increasingly impractical. Successful high earners rarely maintain detailed spending logs, yet many of them save effectively. The savings gap strategy inverts this approach. Instead of tracking and restricting expenses, you decide first what gap you want to create. Remove that money immediately from your available cash flow and then live freely on what remains. This is sometimes called paying yourself first, but the savings gap strategy goes further by making the gap itself the organizing principle of your financial life. While expense reduction offers quick wins, income growth provides unlimited upside. You can only cut expenses to zero, but there's no ceiling on what you can earn. Moreover, income growth tends to compound. Skills lead to opportunities, which lead to more skills and better opportunities. The psychological difference matters too. Cutting expenses often feels like sacrifice and loss. Increasing income feels like growth and achievement. Both move the needle on your savings gap, but one builds momentum while the other can build resentment. This doesn't mean expense management is unimportant. We'll address that thoroughly. But if you had to choose where to focus your energy, income growth generally offers better long-term returns on that investment. Your career is your largest financial asset. A person earning $75,000 annually who expects to work another 30 years has a career worth over $2 million in future earnings, and that's without any raises or advancement. Viewed this way, investing in your career offers enormous potential returns. Career capital consists of the skills, credentials, connections, and reputation that make you valuable in the labor market. Like financial capital, it can be deliberately accumulated and strategically deployed. Unlike financial capital, it can't be lost in a market crash and tends to grow with use rather than diminish. Building career capital requires treating your professional development as seriously as you treat your investment portfolio. This means regularly assessing which skills are gaining or losing value, investing in education and training that enhances your market position, and building relationships with people who can open doors. The most valuable career capital is often specific rather than general. Generic skills like communication or leadership matter, but rare combinations of skills create extraordinary value. The programmer who also understands finance, the doctor who can explain complex topics clearly to the public, the engineer who speaks fluent Mandarin. These combinations are disproportionately valuable because they're disproportionately rare. Negotiation. The fastest path to income growth, most people underestimate both the importance and the accessibility of negotiation. Research consistently shows that people who negotiate their starting salary earn significantly more over their careers than those who accept initial offers. The difference can exceed $600,000 over a working lifetime due to compounding effects. Yet negotiation feels uncomfortable for many people. We worry about seeming greedy, damaging relationships, or having offers rescinded. These fears, while understandable, are largely unfounded. Employers expect negotiation, and research shows that negotiating rarely has negative consequences when done professionally. Effective salary negotiation rests on a few key principles. First, negotiate from a position of genuine value. Before asking for more money, be clear about what you bring to the table, the specific problems you solve, the results you've achieved, the unique combination of skills you offer. Second, research thoroughly. Know what people in similar roles at similar companies in your geographic area actually earn. Websites that aggregate salary data, professional networks, and even careful conversations with colleagues can provide this intelligence. Third, make it easy for the other party to say yes. Understand their constraints, frame your request in terms of their interests, and provide justification that they can use when explaining the decision to their superiors. Negotiation isn't limited to job offers. Regular conversations about compensation with your current employer, fee discussions with clients if you're self-employed, and negotiations over benefits, flexibility and opportunities all contribute to income growth over time. Alternative income streams relying entirely on a single employer for your income creates vulnerability. If that job disappears, your income drops to zero. Building alternative income streams provides both security and growth potential. Side businesses represent one path. The digital economy has dramatically lowered barriers to entrepreneurship. Skills that your employer pays you to use can often be sold directly to clients in the evenings and weekends. Writing, design, programming, consulting, coaching, tutoring, countless skills translate into freelance income. The key to sustainable side income is finding work that doesn't simply exchange more hours for more dollars. Create products, courses, templates, tools, content that can sell repeatedly without your direct involvement. Build systems that generate income even when you're not actively working. This is how side income eventually becomes substantial, rather than exhausting. Investment income represents another stream. Dividends, interest, rental income, and business profits all contribute to your total income without requiring your active labor. Building investment income takes time. You need capital to invest before you can earn returns. But the savings gap strategy naturally creates that capital over time. The mental shift matters as much as the practical steps. Stop thinking of yourself as someone with a job and start thinking of yourself as someone with multiple income streams, some of which are currently more developed than others. This identity shift makes it natural to pursue opportunities and build new streams over time. Before addressing tactical expense reduction, we need to understand why we spend the way we do. Spending isn't primarily rational. It's psychological, social, and often unconscious. Addressing the psychology makes the tactics far more effective. Much spending is driven by hedonic adaptation, the tendency to quickly adjust to improvements in our circumstances and return to a baseline level of satisfaction. Buy a nicer car, and within weeks it feels normal. Move to a bigger house, and soon you can't imagine living in less space. This adaptation explains why income increases often fail to increase happiness. We spend the additional money, adapt to the new normal, and find ourselves on the same hedonic treadmill. Social comparison drives spending too. We benchmark ourselves against peers, neighbors, and the images we see in media. When everyone around us upgrades their lifestyle, we feel pressure to do the same. Not because we need the upgrades, but because we need to maintain our relative position. This creates spending races where everyone runs faster, but no one gets ahead. Identity also shapes spending. We buy things that express who we are or who we want to be. The car we drive, the clothes we wear, the neighborhood we live in all make statements about our identity. Changing spending patterns can feel like changing who we are, which explains why expense reduction often feels threatening rather than liberating. Understanding these forces doesn't make them disappear, but it does make them manageable. When you notice yourself wanting something, you can ask, is this adaptation-driven? Will I care about this in a year? Is this comparison-driven? Am I trying to keep up with someone? Is this identity-driven? Am I trying to project something about myself? These questions create space between impulse and action, and in that space, different choices become possible. Your largest expenses are probably fixed or semi-fixed: housing, transportation, insurance, debt payments. These categories often consume 70% of total spending, which makes them the obvious targets for meaningful expense reduction. Housing typically represents the largest single expense. The difference between stretching for the maximum house you can afford versus choosing something modest can easily be $1,000 or more per month, $12,000 per year that goes directly to your savings gap. This doesn't mean you should live in inadequate housing, but it does mean recognizing that housing upgrades often provide less satisfaction than we anticipate while consuming enormous resources. Geographic arbitrage deserves consideration. Location dramatically affects cost of living. The same lifestyle might cost $100,000 in San Francisco, but $40,000 in Nashville. Remote work has made geographic arbitrage more accessible than ever. Living in a lower-cost area while earning income calibrated to a higher-cost area can supercharge your savings gap. Transportation costs extend far beyond car payments. Insurance, fuel, maintenance, parking, registration, and depreciation add up quickly. The total cost of vehicle ownership often exceeds what people realize. Depending on your circumstances, alternatives like using one car instead of two for a household, choosing reliable used vehicles over new ones, or living somewhere that reduces car dependency can free up substantial monthly cash flow. Insurance deserves regular review. Many people set up policies and never revisit them, even as circumstances change and competitive offerings evolve. Annual reviews of health, auto, home and life insurance can identify savings opportunities. Raising deductibles, bundling policies and shopping for competitive rates all reduce costs without reducing meaningful coverage. Subscription creep has become a modern phenomenon. Streaming services, software, gym memberships, subscription boxes, premium app features. These recurring charges accumulate quietly. No single subscription ruins your finances, but the aggregate can be substantial. Regular audits, perhaps quarterly, help identify subscriptions that no longer deliver value proportionate to their cost. Variable expenses, food, entertainment, clothing, personal care, offer more flexibility but require different management approaches. The key is designing default behaviors that naturally lead to lower spending without requiring constant willpower. Meal planning and cooking at home represent the classic example. The person who meal plans doesn't have to decide each evening whether to cook or order delivery. The decision is already made, the ingredients are already purchased, and cooking becomes the path of least resistance. This default saves money without feeling like sacrifice. Waiting periods before purchases create another useful default. Implementing a 24-hour rule for purchases over $50 or a week-long wait for purchases over $200 allows impulse to fade while preserving the option to buy things you genuinely want. Many items that seem necessary in the moment lose their appeal after a brief wait. Environment design matters enormously. Remove shopping apps from your phone. Unsubscribe from retailer emails. Avoid stores when you don't have specific needs. These environmental changes reduce the stimuli that trigger spending without requiring you to resist temptation in the moment. Cash and envelope systems work for some people by making spending tangible and limited. When you physically hand over currency, spending feels more real than swiping a card. When the envelope for a category is empty, spending in that category stops. Digital tools can simulate this approach while maintaining the convenience of electronic payments. Spending and satisfaction don't have a linear relationship. Initial spending on basic needs produces enormous gains in well-being. Having enough food, adequate shelter, and basic security dramatically improves quality of life. But continued spending beyond sufficiency yields diminishing returns. The difference in satisfaction between a $30,000 car and a $60,000 car is far smaller than the difference between a $30,000 car and no car at all. Understanding this curve helps you identify your personal point of diminishing returns in each spending category. Where do you get the most well-being per dollar spent? Where are you spending beyond the point of meaningful return? These questions help direct resources toward high-value spending while reducing low-value spending. This isn't about minimalism or deprivation. The savings gap strategy isn't anti-spending. It's about spending intentionally on what actually enriches your life while eliminating spending that doesn't. Someone who loves travel might spend generously on experiences while spending minimally on their car. Someone passionate about cooking might invest in quality kitchen equipment while being indifferent to fashion. Knowing yourself and spending accordingly creates both satisfaction and savings. Creating a savings gap means nothing if the money doesn't actually get saved. Human psychology makes this harder than it sounds. When money sits in a checking account, it tends to get spent. Good intentions fade. Emergencies arise. Lifestyle inflation absorbs what seemed like surplus. Automation solves this problem by removing the gap from your control before you can make poor decisions about it. Set up automatic transfers that move money from your checking account to savings and investment accounts immediately after each paycheck. Set up automatic contributions to retirement accounts that come directly from your paycheck before you ever see the money. The psychological principle is simple. We adapt to what we have. If your paycheck deposits $4,000 into your checking account, you'll build a lifestyle around $4,000. If automatic transfers immediately move $1,000 to other accounts and only $3,000 remains, you'll build a lifestyle around $3,000. In both cases, you'll feel like you're spending what you have. But in the second case, you're building wealth automatically. The order of operations matters. Set up your account so that savings happen first, not last. The traditional approach, spend first, save what's left, almost always results in saving nothing. The gap-first approach, save first, spend what's left, almost always results in meaningful accumulation. Once you've created and automated your savings gap, you need to decide where those resources should flow. The answer depends on your circumstances, but a general framework provides useful guidance. Emergency reserves come first. Before aggressive investing or extra debt payments, you need a buffer against life's inevitable surprises. 3 to 6 months of expenses in accessible savings accounts provide security and prevent small emergencies from becoming major setbacks. This isn't exciting, but it's foundational. Every other financial strategy assumes this buffer exists. High-interest debt deserves aggressive attention. Credit card balances, personal loans, and other high-interest obligations effectively guarantee negative returns on your net worth. Paying off a credit card charging 20% interest is equivalent to earning 20% risk-free on your money, a return no investment can reliably match. Attack high-interest debt with intensity. Tax-advantaged retirement accounts offer unique benefits. Employer-matched contributions represent free money, an immediate 50% or 100% return before any investment gains. Tax deductions or deferrals increase the effective amount you're saving. These benefits make retirement accounts particularly valuable vessels for your savings gap. Beyond retirement accounts, taxable investment accounts provide flexibility. Unlike retirement funds, which impose penalties for early withdrawal, taxable investments remain accessible for midlife goals, buying a home, starting a business, taking extended time off, or achieving financial independence before traditional retirement age. The specific allocation depends on your goals, timeline, and circumstances, but the principle remains constant. Direct your gap toward its highest and best use at each stage of your financial life. As income rises, expenses naturally tend to follow. This phenomenon, lifestyle inflation, is the most common way people destroy their savings gap despite earning more money. Understanding and managing lifestyle inflation is essential to long-term gap preservation. Lifestyle inflation often happens unconsciously. Income rises and gradually, imperceptibly, spending rises to match. The car gets upgraded, the apartment gets bigger, dinners out get fancier. Each individual change seems reasonable, even modest, but collectively they consume all the additional income and leave the gap unchanged or even reduced. The solution isn't to freeze your lifestyle permanently, but to control the rate of inflation deliberately. One approach: commit to increasing lifestyle spending by 50% of any income increase while directing the other 50% to your gap. If you get a $10,000 raise, allow yourself $5,000 in additional annual spending while capturing $5,000 in additional annual savings. Your life improves and your gap grows. Another approach: set lifestyle targets based on your savings rate rather than your income. Decide you want to maintain a 30% savings rate and let that constraint determine your lifestyle spending. As income grows, spending can grow, but only as fast as necessary to maintain the target rate. The key insight is that lifestyle decisions should be conscious choices rather than unconscious drift. Decide deliberately how you want to live, rather than waking up one day to discover you've inflated into a lifestyle that consumes everything you earn. Taxes represent a significant claim on your income, often the single largest expense after housing. Legal tax optimization preserves more of your income, directly expanding your savings gap. Tax-advantaged accounts offer straightforward benefits. Traditional retirement account contributions reduce current taxable income. Health savings accounts provide triple tax benefits: deductible contributions, tax-free growth, and tax-free withdrawals for medical expenses. Flexible spending accounts shelter certain expenses from taxation. Income timing can affect tax liability. Deferring income into lower earning years, accelerating deductions into higher earning years, and managing the realization of capital gains all influence total tax burden. These strategies become more valuable as income rises and marginal tax rates increase. Tax loss harvesting in investment accounts allows you to realize losses that offset gains, reducing investment taxation while maintaining market exposure. Charitable giving strategies like donor-advised funds can concentrate deductions into years when they provide the most benefit. Tax optimization requires understanding the rules, which change frequently and vary by jurisdiction. Professional advice becomes increasingly valuable as income and complexity rise. The cost of a good tax professional is often recovered many times over in tax savings. Time is your most powerful ally in building wealth, and the savings gap strategy is fundamentally about converting time into wealth through consistent, sustained effort. Compound growth means early savings contribute disproportionately to ultimate wealth. A dollar saved at 25 has decades longer to grow than a dollar saved at 55. This mathematical reality argues for maximizing your gap as early as possible in your financial life, even when income is lower, and doing so feels harder. But time also works through habit formation. The person who establishes strong savings habits early, who learns to automate, to live below their means, to resist lifestyle inflation, carries those habits through life. Even if the absolute dollars are small initially, the patterns established pay dividends forever. Time enables iteration and improvement. Your first budget won't be perfect. Your initial income growth strategies won't all work. But over years and decades, you refine your approach, learn from mistakes, and improve your results. Someone who starts optimizing their gap at 25 has far more opportunity to iterate than someone who starts at 55. This argues for starting immediately, wherever you are. Don't wait for higher income, better circumstances, or more knowledge. Begin now with whatever gap you can create, automate it, and improve over time. The perfect is truly the enemy of the good when it comes to the savings gap. The ultimate expression of the savings gap strategy is financial independence, the point where investment income from your accumulated gap can sustain your lifestyle without requiring active work. While this might sound like a distant dream, understanding the sequence demystifies the journey. The first stage is financial stability. You have an emergency fund, no high-interest debt, and income exceeds expenses by a comfortable margin. Your gap exists and is protected. The second stage is financial security. You have substantial savings, retirement accounts are on track, and you could weather a significant setback, like job loss without catastrophe. Your gap has accumulated into meaningful wealth. The third stage is financial flexibility. Investment income covers some of your expenses. You have options to work less, to change careers, to take risks, to be more selective about opportunities. Your gap has created choice. The fourth stage is financial independence. Investment income could cover your entire lifestyle if needed. Work becomes optional, chosen rather than required. Your gap has purchased your time. The fifth stage is financial abundance. Investment income exceeds your lifestyle, potentially significantly. You can focus on impact, legacy, and generosity. Your gap has created overflow. These stages typically span decades, but each stage represents meaningful progress, and the journey itself, the habits, skills, and confidence developed along the way, provides value long before the destination is reached. Who you are shapes what you spend. Changing spending patterns often requires evolving your identity, how you think about yourself, and what you value. Some people identify as spenders, generous, spontaneous, enjoying the good life. The suggestion to save more feels like an attack on who they are. Others identify as savers, prudent, future-oriented, building security. Spending beyond necessities triggers anxiety about identity violation. Neither identity is inherently superior. Both have strengths and shadows. But conscious identity construction allows you to choose traits intentionally, rather than accepting default patterns. You might cultivate an identity as someone who spends deliberately on what matters and conserves resources for important goals. This identity supports the savings gap strategy, while avoiding both anxious hoarding and unconscious consumption. Identity shapes behavior more powerfully than willpower. When not overspending becomes who you are rather than what you're trying to do, the struggle diminishes. You don't have to resist temptation constantly because the temptation weakens. "That's not who I am" becomes more powerful than "I shouldn't do that." Money exists in social context, and relationships significantly impact the savings gap. Partners, family, friends, and colleagues all influence both income and spending. Romantic partnerships require particular attention. Financial compatibility, not identical incomes, but aligned values and goals, correlates with relationship satisfaction. Conversations about money can be uncomfortable, but avoiding them creates worse problems. Couples need shared understanding of their collective gap, what it is, how to expand it, and where to direct it. Different approaches work for different couples. Some maintain entirely joint finances, managing the gap together. Others keep separate finances, with clear agreements about shared expenses. Many use hybrid approaches. The specific structure matters less than the alignment it creates. Family relationships also shape financial life. Cultural expectations about supporting parents, helping siblings, or giving to children affect available resources. These obligations are real and often important, but they need to be incorporated into gap planning rather than addressed reactively. Friendships influence spending through social norms and activities. If your friends spend freely, you'll face constant pressure to match their lifestyle. Cultivating friendships with people who share your values, not necessarily your exact financial goals, but appreciation for intentional living, makes maintaining your gap far easier. Managing money sustainably requires managing emotions effectively. Fear, greed, shame, pride, anxiety, and security all attach themselves to financial decisions. Scarcity triggers fight or flight responses that impair decision-making. When money feels scarce, whether or not it objectively is, people make poor choices, taking on expensive debt, avoiding beneficial risks, missing opportunities. The savings gap itself helps alleviate scarcity mindset by providing a buffer and demonstrating progress. Shame about past financial mistakes or current circumstances often prevents people from engaging constructively with their finances. They avoid looking at accounts, skip opportunities for improvement, and continue patterns that don't serve them. Releasing shame, recognizing that past decisions don't determine future possibilities, opens space for effective gap management. The gap itself can become an unhealthy obsession. If maximizing savings becomes the primary value, crowding out relationships, experiences, and present moment joy, the strategy has failed even when the numbers succeed. Financial health serves life. Life doesn't serve financial metrics. Regular reflection helps maintain balance. Why are you building this gap? What does financial security enable? What kind of life are you creating? Reconnecting with these deeper purposes keeps the mechanical work of gap management connected to genuine human flourishing. If you're beginning with no savings gap, or even a negative gap where expenses exceed income, the path forward starts with 3 steps. First, stop the bleeding. If you're accumulating debt, identify what's causing it and take immediate action. This might mean painful cuts, additional income, or both. The goal isn't perfection, just stopping the trajectory of increasing debt. Second, create any positive gap at all. Even $50 per month, less than $2 per day, establishes the pattern. Automate this transfer. Protect it fiercely. Your job right now is simply to prove to yourself that you can save something consistently. Third, increase the gap over time. Once the habit is established, expand it. Each month or quarter, increase automatic transfers slightly. Add new income sources. Find additional expenses to cut. The gap doesn't need to become huge immediately, it needs to grow consistently. The psychology of this approach matters. Starting with dramatic, unsustainable cuts often leads to failure and discouragement. Starting with modest, achievable changes and building momentum leads to long-term success. If you already save consistently but want to maximize the strategy, the focus shifts to optimization across multiple dimensions. Analyze your current gap thoroughly. What percentage of income does it represent? Is it growing or stagnant? Where does the saved money go? Are you capturing tax advantages? Is your asset allocation appropriate? This baseline assessment identifies improvement opportunities. Examine the income side systematically. When did you last negotiate compensation? What skills could you develop to increase market value? Are there alternative income streams you could develop? What would happen if you treated income growth with the same seriousness you treat expense management? Examine the expense side systematically. Review each major category: housing, transportation, food, insurance, discretionary spending. Where are you getting excellent value? Where are you overspending relative to satisfaction gained? What expenses could be eliminated without meaningful quality of life reduction? Review the deployment of your gap. Are you maximizing the employer retirement matches, taking full advantage of tax-advantaged accounts? Investing with appropriate risk for your timeline? Maintaining adequate but not excessive emergency reserves? Then implement improvements in priority order, starting with changes that offer the largest impact for the least effort. Some changes, like increasing retirement contributions, take 5 minutes and make thousands of dollars of difference over time. Others require sustained effort for modest gains. Focus first on the high-leverage changes. The savings gap strategy should become self-sustaining, not a constant struggle, but a background system that operates with minimal attention while reliably producing results. Automation is the foundation. Set up systems so that saving happens without your intervention. Transfers should be automatic. Investment contributions should be automatic. Bill payments should be automatic where appropriate. Reduce the number of financial decisions you need to make. Regular reviews provide course correction. Monthly, check that systems are functioning and review spending patterns. Quarterly, assess progress toward goals and consider adjustments. Annually, conduct comprehensive reviews of insurance, tax strategies, and overall financial architecture. These reviews should be scheduled. Put them on your calendar so they actually happen. Document your systems so they can survive your forgetting. Write down what accounts exist, what automatic transfers happen, what your target allocations are, and why you made the choices you made. Your future self will appreciate this clarity, and so will anyone who might need to understand your finances. Build in flexibility for life changes. Circumstances will evolve. Career changes, family changes, health changes, goal changes. Your systems should accommodate adjustment without requiring complete reconstruction. The principles remain constant even as tactics adapt. The space between your income and your expenses is the most important space in your financial life. This gap funds every goal, provides every security, and creates every option. Maximizing this gap through income growth, expense optimization, and strategic deployment is the essential work of personal finance. The savings gap strategy provides a framework for this work. It begins with understanding the gap itself, its magnitude, its proportion, its trajectory. It expands the gap from the income side through career development, negotiation, and alternative income streams. It expands the gap from the expense side through psychological awareness, fixed cost reduction, and intentional variable spending. It protects the gap through automation and defends it against lifestyle inflation. It deploys the gap strategically toward emergency reserves, debt elimination, tax advantage accounts, and long-term investment. But beyond the mechanics, the savings gap strategy represents a philosophy. It's the recognition that financial success isn't about earning more or spending less in isolation. It's about deliberately creating and maintaining space between the two. It's the understanding that this space, consistently maintained and thoughtfully deployed, compounds over time into genuine wealth and freedom. The journey spans years and decades. There will be setbacks, surprises, and course corrections, but the fundamental approach remains constant. Expand the gap, protect the gap, deploy the gap wisely. Follow these principles consistently, and financial security becomes not a matter of luck or inheritance, but of inevitable result. Your gap awaits. Start where you are, use what you have. Begin today.